one of our own. That's what makes it so painful. Art Modell, he was 65 years old. He went away and the Browns came back. LeBron can never come back. He's one of our own. He's from Akron. He has a tattoo of loyalty on his body. And he ignored that to go chase the championship with Chris Bosh in Miami. He follows Chris Bosh. Chris Bosh should be following him. It's ridiculous. It's embarrassing. Good riddance. Good riddance. Dan Gilbert will bring us a winner. We don't need LeBron.
On our website. But Andy, the question is, how will Cleveland fans get over what happened tonight?
They won't.
America has a complicated relationship with great athletes. When they're winning games for the right teams, we adore them. We buy their jerseys and wear their shoes while we root for them as some general force for good that represents us all. It's benevolent, homemade greatness personified, but all of that comes with an unspoken list of stipulations. Some of them are minor: lose with grace, win with respect. Give us a couple cool moments per week to talk about with our friends. But for a while, there was one sacred bylaw: stay loyal. We hadn't investigated the ethics of it yet. The sociological components of a young athlete being beholden to a billionaire owner hadn't dawned on us, but that wasn't what it really was about anyways. The point was the struggle. We wanted to see great players stand on the stage next to the guys they came up with, to fail together before coming back and earning it the old-fashioned way. LeBron James was supposed to follow that path. It was the cost that came with the crown. Then in the summer of 2010, he left the gray skies of Cleveland to join forces with one perennial all-star and one consistent MVP candidate down in sunny southern Florida. As far as the rest of the country was concerned, that was a clear breach of conduct, and the mental images of beach parties and pina coladas only made that move less tolerable. For the first time in its existence, the athletic industrial complex was about to be weaponized against the same superstar it spent nearly a decade building up, and it had nothing to do with a scandal. It was strictly a result of a basketball decision that the world couldn't stand behind.
This is the worst thing that could have ever happened to me. And I just want to say that I hope that LeBron doesn't win a championship in Miami, and I hope we come back stronger next year and we win the NBA championship.
As of July 8th, 2010, the #1 villain in all of pop culture was the man who'd been the golden boy just a few days ago, LeBron James. There's no perfect way to measure the overall likability of a figure in modern society, but the closest thing we have is a Q-score. It's a survey-based rating system used by marketing firms to nail down the current perception of a prominent figure. And in January of 2010, LeBron was the highest we'd ever seen for an athlete. He was the most famous and most beloved basketball player on the planet. And by the start of the next NBA season, he was the 6th most disliked personality in all of sports. Outside of Miami, no one agreed with the choice LeBron James made in free agency, and our old friends in Cleveland hated it as much as any city can collectively hate anything. They burned jerseys like they were firewood in the winter, and Dan Gilbert went as far as breaking out the keyboard to type a scathing letter in Comic Sans font, calling LeBron selfish, narcissistic, and pretty much any other vindictive and arguably racially motivated adjective you can imagine. It was unusually unprofessional and personal, and eventually it inspired a response from the civil rights leader Jesse Jackson. In any other situation, the general public would have immediately sided with the young athlete who'd done nothing illegal, but this was different than anything we'd seen. It was the story of the summer. America had no love or sympathy for someone who stacked the deck in their own favor, and the fact that it happened through free agency instead of a trade put all of the blame at the feet of LeBron, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh. In reality, All-Stars had teamed up before. The Celtics formed their own Big Three in the summer of 2007, but there was some degree of separation between them and the actual transactions. They didn't trade themselves, and they certainly didn't plan the possibility years in advance like the Heat's Big Three reportedly did. This was something new to the world of sports, the beginning of a movement called player empowerment, and for whatever reason, it didn't sit right with the people at home. But as easy as it would be to blame the outrage on parasocial expectations, LeBron didn't make it any easier on himself either. The proceeds might have gone to the charity, but all the fans saw from the decision was a drawn-out, self-indulgent TV special. And one day later, the Miami Heat held a welcome party for their new core. There was a stage, intro music, billowing pillars of smoke, and then LeBron gave the crowd an estimate of how many championships the trio would win together.
But we also know you three kings came down here to win championships. Not one, championships.
Not two.
LeBron, tell us about that.
Not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, not 6, not 7.
In context, it was a fun joke in the middle of a celebratory event, but nothing he said was going to be portrayed or received in the proper context. Not anymore. The Heat were entering the first season as the most high-profile antagonists the league had seen in decades. Fans who caught 1 or 2 regular season games last year were going to tune in consistently for a chance to watch Miami fail, and early on, they got their wish. The Heat started the season by losing their opener to the Celtics, the same team who ended LeBron's time with the Cavs. And 1 month into the season, Pat Riley's brand new super team was sitting at 9-8. With that kind of start, everyone was a target. Eric Spoelstra was seen as a former intern in a suit he couldn't fill. LeBron and Dwayne Wade's collaborative press conferences were signs of mutual immaturity. The whole team was billed as a flashy Hindenburg, well on its way to blowing up in fantastic fashion. But in reality, those early growing pains were just that, growing pains. The offense didn't look right yet. Chris Bosh's role was still developing, and Wade and LeBron were adjusting to life with a comparable co-star. They weren't a true team yet, but they had 1 week to become one, because on December 2nd, they were taking a trip to Cleveland. If you've been around sports long enough, then you're no stranger to toxic environments. We've all seen rivalries run hot and playoff games teeter on the verge of danger, but the atmosphere in Quicken Loans Arena that night was beyond any of that.
At 4, 6'8" from St. Vincent St. Mary High School, number 6, LeBron James.
There were 9-volt batteries being thrown from the stands, waves of full-volume boos raining down from the sold-out crowd all night long. Even the Cavs themselves said they were uncomfortable. Before the game began, fans were shouting at their own team, demanding they send LeBron to the ground with a Bill Laimbeer-style foul. No one expected an upset. Cleveland looked like the worst team in the league so far, and as inconsistent as the Heat had been, they still had 3 All-NBA talents. But everyone couldn't help but ask the same question: what if they did? What if Cleveland pulled off the greatest, most emotionally consequential regular season upset in league history? How would the Heat respond? They were still in a vulnerable state, still learning how to play with each other while the media and the fans were dissecting their every move. There was a world where this game was the kill shot, but once it actually tipped off, that possibility evaporated. To some extent, it was sad. This was virtually the same roster he'd won 66 games with a year ago, and on that night, it looked like the two teams were playing different sports. LeBron did whatever he wanted. Dwayne Wade left his fingerprints all over the game, and the Heat won by 28. That game was never in doubt, and from that moment forward, neither was the regular season. There were a few mostly contrived bumps along the way. During a short losing streak in March, Eric Spoelstra told the media that some players were crying in the locker room after the game, which gave the media and the internet way more ammunition than they needed. But outside of those soap opera storylines, it was enlightened basketball, full court lobs, flawless defense, and rim pressure that we never thought possible. Like we all assumed, LeBron was the best player in the world, and Dwayne Wade couldn't be any lower than top 3. Neither of them won the MVP award that year, but in the conference finals, they'd send the MVP home, right after they took down the vaunted Boston Celtics. And through it all, there was virtually no drama. 3 straight near sweeps on their way to a finals appearance, everyone saw coming a mile away. They were rolling. There wasn't a team in the East who tested them at all, and in order for anyone to believe they wouldn't win the whole thing with ease, the West would have to bring a heavyweight of its own. Someone like Kobe in the Lakers, or KD in that dangerous young core in Oklahoma. A team with juice. But what we got was the Dallas Mavericks.
Cut that out! Bury the lead, unbelievable! The right stop!
Unguardable.
And it's hammered down by Chandler. Reset. Nowitzki again for the lead. Bang!
led by a 32-year-old Dirk Nowitzki, a 33-year-old Jason Terry, and a 37-year-old Jason Kidd. Obviously, Dallas wasn't bad. They were in the finals after winning 57 games in the regular season, and they'd beaten both of those aforementioned teams to get there. But compared to the exciting, athletic Miami Heat, the Mavs looked, well, old. Too old and too slow to keep up with Miami over the course of an entire series. That's what the analysts thought before Game 1 started, and that's what they thought after it ended. Dallas hung in it, but in the end, the Heat won comfortably, and with 7 minutes to go in Game 2, Dwayne Wade hit a 3 to give Miami a 15-point lead before celebrating with LeBron in front of the Mavs bench. It felt like it was over. LeBron and Bosh would win their first, Wade would have his second, and the entire team would spend all summer parading down South Beach. But before the celebrations could start, the Mavs put together a run. It started with a couple layups, then a couple big shots, and in the blink of an eye, Dirk Nowitzki was banking in a left-handed layup to steal Game 2 in Miami. It was stunning, and as far as the NBA community was concerned, it was incriminating. Dwayne Wade looked like Dwayne Wade all night, but LeBron disappeared down the stretch. Sean Marion forced him to settle for jump shots in crunch time, the same recipe he always struggled with, and in that fourth quarter, he finished with just 2 points. In Game 3, they rebounded. Every member of the Big Three contributed, and Chris Bosh delivered the game-winning jumper off a LeBron assist. But in Game 4, Dallas figured something out. Rick Carlisle and his assistant Dwayne Casey already had a plan in place. Sean Marion took the bulk of the LeBron assignment, and Deshaun Stevenson, yes, that Deshaun Stevenson, would spell him when they needed it. So far, that was working. But down 2-1, they made some adjustments. First, they added Jason Kidd to the defensive rotation. He was smaller and nowhere near as athletic as LeBron at this point, but Dallas accounted for that. They weren't going to play him straight man anymore. They were shifting to a matchup zone. Everyone would shade off their man without doubling. The player guarding LeBron would dare him to shoot jumpers, and they'd funnel any drive to Tyson Chandler. In a vacuum, it was an inventive defensive tool, but in this situation, it was the perfect plan to attack both Miami's and LeBron's pressure points. There were only a few real answers to it. LeBron could have gotten the ball in the post and quickly attacked, but he didn't have a real post game yet. He could have kicked to a shooter, but Chris Bosh wasn't comfortable as a stretch big yet either, and putting the game on the shoulders of James Jones or Mario Chalmers was exactly what Dallas wanted. There were no clear solutions, no matter how hard he looked, and eventually he short-circuited. In Game 4, he played the worst playoff game of his career, scoring only 8 points as the Mavs evened the series up, and after the game, the spiral continued. Heading into Game 4, Dirk Nowitzki was rumored to have a significant fever, but his 21 points were enough to leave his opponents suspicious. So a day after the game, LeBron and Dwayne Wade started coming down with the same thing.
Oh, did y'all hear me cough? I think I'm sick.
Now before you react, let's think back for a moment. Back to LeBron's rap beef with Deshaun Stevenson, or his tendency to spontaneously dance on the sideline with the Cavs. In the moment, him coughing to mock an opposing star might seem out of character, but in Cleveland, when everyone loved him, this wouldn't have been seen as mocking. It would have been something closer to a fun, lighthearted joke. Worst case scenario, it would have been an ill-advised jab, like his free throw line conversation with Gilbert Arenas. Either way, it would have been an expression of the familiar personality the whole country had connected with. But the circumstances had changed now, and so had the world's perception of him. He was a villain, and no matter what he said about it, it was obvious that he didn't know how to adjust to that. The Nike campaign they ran earlier that year sent the same message. He was trying to brush off the disdain and treat it like it was part of the job, but it never had been. Before this season, he spent his entire career as the basketball world's greatest fixation, and now he was its most prominent heel. Without really changing, his fun-loving, outgoing persona became a smug, condescending attitude that no one could stand. And in response, the human part of the 26-year-old megastar recoiled. To put it simply, LeBron James didn't enjoy being hated, but he didn't know how to be anyone but himself. Unfortunately, this was the finals, and Dallas was going to use every bit of motivation they could. Dirk saw the video. His teammates made sure he did. LeBron came back with another triple-double. double, but he only scored 2 points in the fourth quarter as Dirk delivered another clutch masterpiece. And 1 game later, the Mavs coaching staff pulled out all the stops. They continued to force anyone other than Dwayne Wade or LeBron James to beat them, continued playing mental games with LeBron by switching up his matchup, and at one point, even putting the 5'10" JJ Barea on him. And on the other end, they all made plays. Dirk closed the game out, but Jason Terry led the team in scoring. Barea gave them 15, and everyone else turned in timely buckets when they needed to. When the final buzzer went off in Game 6, the Dallas Mavericks were champions. The team built around the old, loyal legend had upset the newly assembled Big Three Heat. Those were some ugly optics, and there was no way to make them look better.
Does it bother you that so many people are happy to see you fail?
Absolutely not. You know, at the end of the day, they got to wake up tomorrow, have the same life that they had before they woke up today. You know, they can get a few days or a few months or whatever the case may be on being happy about not only myself, but the Miami Heat not accomplishing their goal. But, you know, they got to get back to the real world at some point.
All summer long, the jokes and think pieces rolled in. Social media was filled with block text memes explaining why LeBron's phone was always on silent, and every reputable sports outlet was psychoanalyzing the superstar, trying to figure out what happened to him in the finals. Did Dwayne Wade yelling at him in Game 2 break him? Was the cumulative pressure too much? Did the Mavs defense break his brain? It was a PR nightmare, and LeBron responded to it by doing what he couldn't do during the season. He ignored it. Thanks to an NBA lockout, he had extra time to work on his game, and he spent that time living out an action movie training arc. He sat with the criticisms, listened to Skip Bayless take multiple victory laps, and worked on his low post moves with Hakeem Olajuwon. When the next season finally did begin on Christmas morning, LeBron James was playing the best basketball of his life. He was faster, stronger, and more vertically athletic than any athlete in any sport. And on top of that, he was more aggressive than he'd ever been. At the end of the year, he won his 3rd MVP, and in the playoffs, the Heat kept the momentum going. They breezed through the first 2 rounds and jumped out to a 2-0 lead in the Eastern Conference Finals against the Celtics. Even as Chris Bosh worked through an injury, it looked like they were finals bound for the 2nd year in a row. But then, the tide turned. There was no collapse to blame this time. LeBron was great in every game. Wade was great in most, and Bosh made his return on a minutes restriction in Game 5. But the Celtics simply had his number. They found a way in Game 3, fouled LeBron out in Game 4, and then in Game 5, Boston was up 1 with 50 seconds to go, and Paul Pierce called for the screen to bring LeBron out to the perimeter. He waited, sized him up, and then, boom. Just like that, the Heat were down 3-2, and LeBron James was heading back to Boston with his season on the line, the only city that nearly hated him as much as Cleveland did, for no reason other than pure antipathy. And that city was ready to play the same role they played in 2010. This basketball cathedral was going to be the final resting place of the chosen one. LeBron James would go on, but if he lost here, he'd never be the LeBron he once was, or the LeBron we thought he could be. He'd simply be a really great player with an asterisk next to his name. The villain who couldn't handle the vitriol. The impending disaster was so thematically coherent, it transcended reasonable projection. It felt inevitable. Of course, this is how it would end. It had been foreshadowed for years, but instead, LeBron entered the biggest game of his life with no emotion on his face.
Pearson throws it down. James with the jump shot is good. James for 3. Puts it in. Great start for LeBron James. 6 of 7 from the field. Special passes as James hits another. A 30-point first half. Allen turns. Oh, jump hook won't go. James comes flying in and throws it down. James for 3. Does it again. 39 points. This has been one impressive, dominant performance. James flips it up left-handed. Banks it in. He's got 45.
It was the best game of his career, a personal and professional breakthrough blended into one dominant performance. And in Game 7, he came through with 31 and 12 to seal the deal. He wasn't going to play into the villain role or run away from it anymore. He was just going to play the game, and because of that, Miami was back in the finals, where another foil from the Southwest was waiting for them. Oklahoma City was a team full of young superstars in the making: Russell Westbrook, Serge Ibaka, James Harden, and of course, Kevin Durant, the next prodigy who announced his extension with the small market team that drafted him in a short tweet one day before the infamous decision. The narratives wrote themselves. Now the entire country was going to watch the future do it too. And in Game 1, that's exactly what happened. LeBron was great, but the combination of Durant and Westbrook was better. Another Skip Bayless victory lap set the stage for a second consecutive collapse. But after that game, Eric Spoelstra made a change. He moved Chris Bosh to center and played a small ball lineup, opening up driving lanes and increasing the team's overall pace. In that system, LeBron was entirely unstoppable. He dominated the series on both ends of the floor. And finally, the Heat put it all together. After a year of tribulations and a summer of personal attacks, the Miami Heat were the best team in the world, and the long-awaited celebration kicked off with exactly the right words.
It's about damn time.
No memes, no armchair psychology, just sunshine and champagne all the way to the beginning of next season. And before it started, Miami signed the Celtics' own Ray Allen in free agency. If they were enlightened before, then in the 2013 season, they reached basketball nirvana. Chris Bosh was officially a stretch 5, and with that kind of spacing, they looked unstoppable. The Heat won 66 games that year, including a 27-game winning streak in the middle of the season, and LeBron followed up his best season of his career with a better season. He won his 4th MVP and finished 2nd in the DPOY voting. And after a 7-game war with a young Paul George and the Pacers, the Heat were back in the finals. This time, there was no real juxtapositions. Of course, LeBron played San Antonio back in the 2007 finals, so there was some personal closure on the line, but the air itself wasn't heavy with thematic weight. The Spurs were older than the Heat, but they were both former champions littered with Hall of Famers. It wasn't good versus evil or past versus present. It was simply a championship series between the two best teams in the league, and it lived up to the billing from the opening tip. San Antonio won a hard-fought Game 1, defined by a Tony Parker bank shot. Miami responded with a dominant Game 2 and an iconic LeBron block. And the series just kept going like that. Finally, we arrived at Game 6, and after some Tony Parker heroics, the Heat were down 5 with 20 seconds to go. At this point, against this team, that seemed like a death sentence. Everyone thought it was over. The league even went as far as wheeling the trophy out to prepare for the ceremony. And after Kawhi Leonard split a pair of free throws, Miami had a chance. Spoelstra drew up a play on the sideline. They got the ball to LeBron. Actually, we'll step out of the way here. This call belongs to Mike Breen.
James catches, puts up a 3. Won't go. Rebound Bosh. Back out to Allen. His three-pointer. Bang! Tie game with 5 seconds remaining. Spurs do not have a timeout.
After that miracle, the Heat would win the game in overtime. And in Game 7, LeBron delivered 37 points and 12 rebounds to secure the team's 2nd straight title. That completed the arc. 3 finals appearances in 3 years, 1 humbling loss, 1 emphatic win, and 1 all-time classic. He stayed the course and won with the people he lost with, all while delivering weekly, unbelievable moments for us to talk about with our friends. Calling him a coward or branding him as a villain was an outdated way of thinking. Some people still held on to those notions, but he officially delivered. He fought through the most extreme example of national disdain in the modern era, and he was coming out on the other side with 2 championships and 2 more MVPs. And the worst thing you could say about him was that you didn't like the way he acted in a press conference. He wasn't America's singularly beloved star anymore, and it would take some special accomplishment for him to get there again. But that last year in Miami, the energy shifted. In 2014, people didn't hate the Heat the way they used to, and they didn't hate LeBron the way they used to. That didn't stop a portion of the country from pulling for the Pacers in the Eastern Conference Finals, or from celebrating when the Spurs got their revenge in the finals. But there were no more moral judgments cast this time, only basketball-related conclusions and allusions to what this summer would hold as LeBron James entered free agency for the first time since 2010. We all survived off of rumors and checked SportsCenter regularly for any impending TV specials. Most assumed he'd stay in Miami. The big market fan bases like LA and New York speculated like they always did, but overall, it was expected to be a quiet re-signing with little to no drama. Then on July 11th, 2014, Sports Illustrated published a letter written by LeBron James himself with a short 3-word title, "I'm Coming Home."